All right, hey guys, I want to make this quick video here. This is going to be kind of a tease of a future video that I want to do, and I kind of did tease it yesterday. So I'm listening to this podcast right here called That UFO Podcast, and they're just taking listeners' thoughts and opinions and stuff like that. So here's something very interesting. So this guy talks about a podcast that he's been listening to that I have already listened to the entire series of. There's supposed to be another episode coming out December sometime, but I don't think it's out yet. But it talks about consciousness. It talks about telepathy. It's called Telepathy Tapes. I won't hide it any longer. But yeah, there's a lot of connections. And just listen to this and I'll give my thoughts as we go.
It's about children with autism, that what we call autism. They seem to be all telepathic, at least the ones that don't speak. And one person in particular shared the idea that what we see as UFOs are actually beings that are not quite made of what we would call matter. And then you can go into this topic of, the flip, Jeffrey Greipel, the whole materialism thing. So actually my kind of background is also non-dual awareness type stuff, in which the idea is that everything is actually made of awareness, and then all those things become possible. From that lens, all of this is just completely possible. These beings are not quite material as we see them, but they can appear material because we inhabit the material lens or something like that.
Yeah, I've not listened yet. I can see it's gone up to, I think, the number 4 podcast in the world, just through word of mouth. I know it's got a lot of traction in the UFO community with that kind of obvious tie-in of consciousness, telepathy. I'm excited to listen to it. I've no idea of the structure of it. I get the gist of what it is, and like I said, I've heard clips. I know people who have children who are autistic to varying different degrees. Subject close to my heart in a way, but that link to the UFO topic is very interesting.
All right, I'll stop there. There's so many thoughts. I mean, he said it's the number 4 podcast in the world. I didn't know that. I didn't think it was that popular at all, because I go on their YouTube. They have just a couple of YouTube videos. They don't have the podcast on YouTube, but only had 1,000 views or something like that. It was very low. So that was kind of telling that, okay, maybe it's not a very well-known podcast. But somebody had talked about it in the comment section somewhere. I don't even remember where. It's a month ago now. And it just kind of stuck in my mind, oh, maybe I should check that out. But as he said, though, the host of that UFO podcast, that there's obvious connections. He even said, right before this clip, that he's working on having the person who put that podcast together, the Telepathy Tapes. So that's interesting. This is a UFO podcast, and they don't talk about UFOs on that show. Not really. Although it is mentioned, I think, at the very end, the last couple minutes of the last episode. But yeah, just again, I'm stringing all this stuff together: consciousness, telepathy, and gods, because they talk about how these non-speaking autistic people speak to gods and spirit guides and all this and that. So there's all these connections, and just the fact that it's the number 4 podcast in the world, supposedly. Christians got to get on talking about some of this stuff. Now, I did read an article from Got Questions. I remember I shared something from that yesterday, but I read a different article, this is weeks ago, about telepathy, because I was sharing my thoughts on this podcast on my Facebook. Of course, nobody wanted to discuss it, but that's typical for me anyway. Yeah, so I shared an article on it, and I wasn't too impressed with the article, to be honest with you. I just think that Christians need to be more thoughtful and have a better answer to this whole thing. There were some things that didn't really correlate or make sense, just at least in my opinion. But anyway, so yeah, that this is a big piece of the puzzle, this issue with telepathy and speaking to other beings. I mean, it really does tip its hand towards this being a more spiritual thing, not little green men from another planet or whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to share that real quick. That's as far as I listened to this podcast, so there's probably more goodies to share, but I got to get going. So let me know what you guys think, and I hope to do a video on this pretty soon, because there's a lot of just little information, things that I have learned, and, I just think we need to talk about it. It's worthy of a discussion. So God bless. Talk to you later.